Hi, I'm Dr. Richard L. Robles, author of the book The Path to Health, a Manual for Proper Care of the Human Body. I want to talk to you today about the most important thing you can do to have a healthy baby and to save your marriage and to prevent years of financial stress, physical stress, emotional stress. The one thing that you can do, and the sooner you do it the better, is that if you or your loved one is having a baby, is to take a methylfolate supplement or eat copious amounts of greens. And there are two major reasons why. Both of these are very, very important. So if you look on the screen here, you'll see this little chart here. And the first thing that we see that's really common in a lot of people is that they have this genetic variant in an enzyme that helps the body attach a methyl group to folate or folic acid. And this gene is called methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And the job of this gene is again, to one of these major steps. There's some B6 dependent pathways, but it allows the body to take a carbon and 3 hydrogen, it's otherwise known as a methyl group, and attach them to folate. Now, this is really important for a number of reasons, but through the human genome study, they found that there was a high incidence of autism, ADD, schizophrenia, neurodegenerative diseases of the brain, cardiovascular issues, autoimmunity, and cancer in people who have abnormally functioning copies of this particular gene, which means that the gene just moves slower at its ability to attach this methyl group to the folate. And so for some people, they may live their whole lives and have no problems, but in this increasingly toxic world, it's more common that you're going to find that we have to use up these methyl donors in the metabolism of different types of things in our environment, and that depletion has an impact on the generations that come after us. And so this is one of the reasons why you should take a methylfolate supplement as opposed to folic acid, because if you have this gene variant, which about 30 to 40% of the population is estimated to have it, then you can take more folic acid and it'll actually sometimes make the problem a little bit worse. So having these methyl donors is really important. The second, and I can almost guarantee that you've never heard this from anybody else before unless you're one of my patients. Back in 2018, there was a study that was done regarding sunspots. And we're not talking about the sunspots that you find on your skin. We're talking about the sunspots on the actual sun that are an indication of the amount of radiation given off by the sun. And you'll notice that if you look at this little chart here on the screen, it shows the number of sunspots, and they've been counting these for centuries that have been observed over time. And you'll see this line here is at 100. And you'll see that since about, let's say, midpoint of June of 2022 to this day, any baby that's born in there is going to be born in a period where we have greater than 90 sunspots. Why is that important? So this study that was published in the Journal of Photochemistry Photobiology in 2018, I want to highlight a couple of things here for you. I'm just going to read this so you can hear it directly verbatim from what's in the study. Males of all races born with a UVR intensity is estimated by the number of sunspots being less than 90 had an average lifespan of 74.4 years. For females of all races, 78.1 years. And here's the kicker. Males born with greater than 90 had an average lifespan of 66.3 years. So if you take that, that's 74.4 years if there's less than 90 sunspots and 66.3 years if there's greater than 90 sunspots. This study was done on a huge amount of people, like over 1 million people. So they used data from 78 million death, so it's right here. The data used 78 million death records from the National Center for Health and Statistics from 1979 to 2013, with accidents, suicides, and work casualties deleted from the results, which left 63 million records. What they found in these 63 million records were that basically males who were born with less than 90 sunspots lived to 74.4 years. Males who were born with greater than 90 sunspots on their actual date of birth, they lived 66.3 years. And for females of all races, they lived 70.2 years with greater than 90 sunspots, and with less than 90 sunspots, 78.1 years. So essentially that's like an 8 to 8.5 year difference in lifespan based on the number of sunspots present when you're born. So what does this have to do with methylfolate? Well, remember we talked about these methyl groups. The body attaches this methyl group onto methylfolate for a particular reason. That's to allow the body to donate that methyl group for other purposes. One of those purposes being the unzipping and rezipping of DNA. Why would your DNA need to unzip and rezip? DNA unzips so that we can make a copy, and then it zips back up because that DNA still has a purpose and a job to do. So when in early life development, when the babies went from the point of conception forward, there's a huge amount of turnover of new cells being produced where the body has to unzip, rezip, and make more and more copies of your DNA to be produced into these new cells. If you don't have adequate methyl donors, and methylfolate is one of these primary donors, then your body is going to unzip and rezip with a little bit of an error, and that error can get passed on. This has been associated with midline birth defects, cleft lip, cleft palate, potentially closing of the spine like spina bifida, sealing of the septum of the heart, so teratology of Fallot and things like that. So you have all of these different conditions related to it, and so we know that when it comes to cancer, people have heard of the breast cancer gene, the BRCA gene, and they're like, oh, okay, well, if you have that gene, then it increases the likelihood that you're going to have breast cancer. So you have people willfully getting double mastectomies because they have this gene and there's a family history of breast cancer. Unfortunately, and I don't know, maybe it's just because the doctors aren't aware of the research that's out there, but the BRCA gene is only predictive of breast cancer in patients born after 1940. Before 1940, it doesn't really predict reliably breast cancer. So what's the difference between people born before 1940 and people born after 1940? In the 1940s, we had World War II, and there was a huge amount of experimentation going on to produce bigger and bigger weapons that gave off more and more radiation to do more and more damage. Unfortunately, that radiation has persisted in the environment, and now you have people who are being exposed to much higher radiation levels than they were before then. So now you have people who have this variation in this gene that's supposed to protect the body from double-stranded damage to DNA from radiation being exposed to more radiation. But what happens in a solar maximum, like we see here on this chart that we're in right now? With greater sunspots, we know there's more radiation. With more radiation, we have more susceptibility to double-stranded damage to DNA for some people. How do you protect against that? One of the potential ways you can do that is with methylfolate. So 2 reasons that you really should be taking the methylfolate right now is, number one, because there's a high incidence of these MTHFR genetic variants in the population, and so you want to give them more opportunities to have those methyl donors to protect the formation of that new baby. The second is because we know that right now, because there's greater than 90 sunspots, and there will be probably very likely for the next 2 to 3 years, if you're pregnant now, or you know someone who's pregnant, or a loved one is pregnant, they should be taking these methyl donors to see if it can reduce some of the damage that's done from the increased radiation from the sun, which has an 8.1 to 8.5 impact negatively on the lifespan of your future child. Again, there's nothing. Don't be worried. Do what you can. Live a good life. Make sure you're happy. Make sure your child's happy. But most importantly, the work that you do now can have an impact on the outcome of the birth of your child. Now, why would that have an influence on your marriage? Well, we know that when people have children that are born with neurodevelopmental challenges, that the increased likelihood of divorce is high. We know that it also puts an enormous amount of financial stress. So spending a little bit of money now to buy a supplement or eating more green leafies now so that you can have more of these methyl donors available to protect your newly forming baby is vitally important. So you can also go to Fullscript.com right here. You'll see a link across the screen for you. So Fullscript.com/welcome/Robles. You can go there, and I have a curated list of supplements that you can take that will basically give you some of these methyl donors and can reduce some of that stress. The likelihood is very high that your prenatal vitamin doesn't have methylfolate in it, and it may not have enough to help your body depending on what your needs are. We can also do genetic testing. If you've done a 23andMe or Ancestry.com test with saliva, I have a nutrigenomic evaluation that we do in this office where we can assess whether or not you have one of these genetic variants in your MTHFR genes, and we can see, potentially how much of that supplement would be ideal for you to take. The most important thing is that if you talk to your doctor and your doctor isn't aware of the stress from sunspots or the sun's radiation, if you talk to your doctor and they're not aware of the difference between folic acid, folate, and methylfolate, then you need to do a little bit more research, make yourself aware, consume more of my content, maybe you take the suggestions that I have as far as the supplements are concerned. Maybe you can eat a big plate of green leafy vegetables and then another big plate and another big plate, and you can keep that coming in to make sure that you stay healthy and that you keep your baby healthy. I hope this information helps you get on your path to health. You'll find the links in the description below, and I hope you have a great day.